Would you like to learn how to tap into a UK audience of more than 7 million people, an audience that's grown by 24% in the last year alone? In this video, the fastest way for financial planners to launch their audio podcast and join the podcasting revolution. Hi, I'm Martin Bamford from Bamford Media, and in this video I'd like to share some of my experience in producing more than 1,000 podcast episodes over the past 5 years, helping you to launch your podcast in the quickest and easiest way possible and becoming part of the podcasting revolution. Now is really the perfect time to launch a podcast. We're all at home, your ideal listeners are at home, your ideal guests are at home, and it's really never been easier to become a podcaster. So here are the steps you need to take to launch your podcast as quickly as possible and with the minimum of fuss. Now, the first step I think you should take is to listen to a variety of other podcasts. Don't just listen to financial planning podcasts, there's several now in that space, but listen to podcasts from a whole variety of genres. And what you're looking to do here is just get a feel for what works and what doesn't work. And as the author Austin Kleon says, steal like an artist. Pick the best bits, find the best ideas, put your own spin on them and make them your own, but don't try and reinvent the wheel. All the good ideas are out there already, the fantastic formats are out there already. Just find the ones that you feel comfortable with, and then that's how you launch your podcast. So step one, listen to a whole load of podcasts from a whole variety of genres. Step number two is to find some people to speak to, some guests, and you're looking to find interesting people. Don't necessarily think that the most interesting guests are high profile or famous people. I think we can have interesting conversations with anyone, really. Anyone that's got a story to tell, anyone that has some experiences they can share on your podcast. So start with your own network. Think about your clients, about your professional connections, maybe local business owners, people who are willing to have a chat with you about their story, about their life experiences. These would all make fantastic podcast guests. Step number three is to press the record button. Now, one of the benefits of the lockdown is we've all become so used to doing Zoom video calls, and Zoom is a really fantastic platform for recording your podcast interview. All you need to do is have a Zoom call and press record, and then the audio recording of that Zoom call becomes the basis for your podcast episode. It's really that simple. You don't need any expensive kit to record your podcast, although if you want the best possible sound quality, I have some recommendations. If you want to spend around £250–300, you can get broadcast quality sound for your podcast. But the most important thing is to make sure that both you and your guest are wearing headphones. That cuts out the echo, it cuts out the feedback, and it will make sure you have a much better sound quality for your podcast. Step number four is to outsource the editing of your podcast episodes. So with the conversation recorded, you need to edit that, to tighten things up a bit, to remove the ums and the pauses, the deep breath sounds, all of those things that will really grate on your podcast listeners when they're listening to your episode. And I recommend outsourcing this because firstly, it's not worth your time and effort and expense to learn the audio editing process. But secondly, the process of editing the podcast is often best done by somebody that didn't record it in the first place. So get somebody to come at it with a fresh pair of ears, with a bit of an impartial view. They can understand what's interesting, what matters in the conversation and what doesn't. And also they'll have access to the best possible editing kit and also the knowledge of how to use it. So they'll be able to apply noise removal and compressors and normalizations, and also to export the final podcast file in the correct format. So outsourcing your podcast editing is a really effective way of doing and getting your podcast launched very quickly. Step number five is to set up your podcast hosting. Now, our favorite platform for podcast hosting is Libsyn. There's many others out there too. You can use SoundCloud, you can use a whole variety of podcast hosts. The job of the podcast hosting platform software is to host and hold on to the audio file, the MP3 file, and then produce a feed, an RSS feed, which goes out to all of the different podcast players. You don't have to worry about the technicalities of that. They do all the heavy lifting for you. The reason we love Libsyn is it really does all that heavy lifting. It distributes each podcast episode you upload to a whole variety native platforms, including Apple Podcasts, to YouTube, to SoundCloud, anywhere you want it to go really. So find and set up your podcast host, and then you're ready to upload your first episode. And then step number 6, once you've recorded your episode and you've had it edited for you, you upload it and you publish it on your podcast host, and your podcast is live. You make sure you submit that feed to the likes of Apple. Apple's a really popular one, but also to YouTube, because a huge number of podcast listeners consume their podcasts on the YouTube platform. And that's how you get your podcast out there into the world. Make sure you put it on your website, make sure you share it on your social media, make sure you email details to your clients, and also tell them how they can listen to a podcast, because some of your clients won't be familiar with podcasting, how to subscribe, how to access it. Make it as easy as you possibly can for them to do so. And with those 6 steps, your podcast is live. I really do believe now is the perfect time to launch a podcast. As I said earlier, we're all at home. All of the prospective guests that you want to speak to are at home as well. And when we return to work and the commuters come back in force, podcast consumption is just going to explode. So many more people are going to listen to podcasts in that environment. Already, we're seeing huge growth year on year in podcast listeners, and podcast listeners tend to be your ideal clients. They tend to be well educated, they tend to be affluent, they tend to be decision makers. These are exactly the sort of people you want to get your message across to and raise your profile with. Now, I hope you found that useful. If you did find it useful, please press the like button and also leave a comment below. Make sure you press subscribe to get more marketing lessons like this from me on this channel in the future as well. If you need some help setting up your podcast, I'd love to chat. It's what we do day in, day out for a whole variety of financial planner clients, and we love doing it. So do get in touch if we can help at all. hello@bamfordmedia.co.uk. Until next time, I'm Martin Bamford from Bamford Media. Thank you for watching.